Welcome to another episode of Alpine Garage Sports. My name is Chris. I am your host for this show, and I'm sounding a little nasally because it's spring in Colorado, and I think you know what comes along with that. But in any case, there's a lot of light in the garage today. You notice the light's a little bit different. Have the garage doors open today because we have a 60-degree day here in Colorado, and there's going to be a snowstorm tomorrow that's going to drop about 6 to 10 inches. So this is nice. We're soaking it up today, and I'm glad I was able to make some videos for you today, kind of the intersection of good weather and good feeling. So here we are talking about NIL again. Now, we have a series going right now, and this is episode 2. Today we're talking about collectives, but yesterday we talked about everything NIL and basically what NIL is. So if you're wanting to get a little bit more information on that, down in the description, there's the playlist for all of these NIL videos. I'm doing them in sequence like a series, and you can actually go back and forth and check each one of them out. Today is about collectives, and what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about why are collectives important, how are they structured, what types of collectives are there, and who they best represent. Then we're going to get into the problems or the potential problems with collectives, and I think you can see this coming. So that's going to be in this video. So first of all, I want to ask you to please subscribe to the channel if you like this content. Now, we have the best subscribers in all of Buffland, and you can join them down in the comments just by leaving a comment down there. I want to know what you think about NIL collectives. What NIL collective do you like the best? Did you have any questions about it? Put those all down in there, and I will answer every comment. Thank you to my subscribers already that are here. You guys are beautiful, and you make my life so fun just by communicating with you on a daily basis. NIL can be distributed a couple of different ways. So you can go directly to the athlete, which a lot of the really top tier athletes do. So, Oikos goes to Prime and his family, and then, some car dealerships may have an opportunity there, and there's some big major brands that can connect directly with the athletes. Then for everyone else, and even for those athletes, there are collectives. Now, the collectives are usually boosters or supporters of schools, and it has to be a non-school entity that get together and create a collective. And what they do is, they pool money, they pool opportunities, essentially, for the student athletes. And this type of entity is really good for most of the athletes that may not have independent NIL opportunities on their own. So that's where these are born. They are structured in 2 separate ways. So first are for-profit entities. And that's what probably most of them are, is these are normal businesses that are either giving money to the collective or they're giving opportunities to the collective in order to draw the student athletes in and create a connection there that benefits both parties. The other would be a nonprofit entity. A nonprofit entity is a 501c3, will give benefactors a tax deduction, and they'll give the student athlete some charitable work to do in exchange for that money. So for folks that want to get some things done in the community or through charity, and they want a tax deduction, and at the same time the student athlete wants to get some NIL money, these are good organizations to go through in order to do that. So the tax-exempt organization is growing in popularity. Now, broken down into those, there are separate different types of entities within those. Most of these are for-profit entities, but you have marketplace collective. Marketplace collectives bring businesses and student athletes together. Those marketplaces will generally tie in those 2 parties, and then the 2 parties will actually connect with one another and do the deal between the 2 of them, and the collective kind of steps back. That is a marketplace collective. Then you have the donor-driven collective. The donor-driven collective is kind of similar to what the old booster thing used to be, where, the underhanded booster used to, toss $50 to a player here or there. And in this particular case, these are donors that just want to donate to the collective, and the collective will actually work to get work for the student athletes to come in and get that money. Sometimes it's a pretty simple process, even more simple than you would think. And in a lot of cases with those donor-driven collectives, some of that exchange could be, meeting players and, having functions and stuff like that. So that's a pretty popular kind of a social network kind of collective. Then you have the dual collectives, and the dual collectives are both the market and the donor. And the reason why dual collectives are gaining in popularity is because there's a lot of scrutiny being put on the donor-driven collectives. The donor-driven collectives probably, as legislation passes, will get the most scrutiny from the NCAA and other entities that are going to be looking at the compliance of this. Because that is, like I was saying, a little bit more like the old school, here's some money for playing kind of thing. Even though it likely is not, it just has that like aura around it. So the dual allows the collective to kind of do a little bit of both. Donors can get involved, the marketplace can get involved, so businesses can get involved in that if they want to. And it's, I would say, a little bit more easy to legitimize the processes without a lot of scrutiny. Then you have the Yoke Collectives, which is YOKE, which is an actual app that helps donors interact with student athletes. And typically what this is like a lot of gaming platforms use Yoke to where, for instance, if you join the collective as a donor, you might be able to, for instance, play video games with student athletes. It's basically donations driven for access to the players is what that is. And it involves other accesses to players, including tailgates and stuff like that. So there's a lot of Yoke platform collectives that are very popular. And then there are media-driven collectives. These media-driven collectives are kind of interesting. One of these is like Open Doors. So it's Open, D-O-R-S-E. And one of the things that is done through Open Doors is there are companies out there that will actually, a player plays a game, okay? Then shortly after the game, a highlight reel of that player in that game would be available to the player as an offer, right? With money attached to it. And then the player then takes that reel and posts it on their social media. That reel is embedded with ads. So now the player is actually acting as an advertiser for the company that is making the reels and the advertisers that that company endorses. So there is a new one out there that you may see a lot more in this coming year where that happens. So as you can see, there are a lot of different ways that people are devising. This is just over a couple of years. People are figuring out all kinds of ways in order to get money to these players. And the players are making it easier for people to access them for NIL deals. So this whole thing is really blowing up. And legislation is coming to kind of, I would say, corral this a little bit because it's going in a lot of different directions. A lot of these I see as very good things. Very good things for the businesses, very good things for the students. I don't know why they would be regulated, but right now they're not, and so that's where they're going. Now, concern about collectives. Obviously, there's concern about collectives. In fact, this last summer and this last cycle for this last season has really, and even in the spring, so I'd say over the last 8 months, there have been numerous specific situations where NIL collectives have guaranteed money to a player that didn't work out. There's also some where it worked out just fine, but created a lot of scrutiny on that collective. So a really notable one would be Jaden Rashada. Now, I did a video on him earlier in January, and he was offered like $12 or $13 million from a collective in Florida. And when that didn't pan out, he ended up going to Arizona State. Before he committed to Florida, he had committed to Miami. So they're for NIL money. So there's a lot of moving and shaking and a lot of commitments and decommitments based off of NIL collectives promising specific cash outlays to these players. And it's creating a lot of bad blood with collectives that don't do that and schools that don't do that. Colorado is one of the schools that does not play the NIL game, but most of the other large colleges at some point or another have been pinched a little bit on this NIL thing. And these coaches are getting a little bit burnt by this too because they have an opportunity every year that they're going to lose their star players or maybe most of their players because other collectives on other teams have promised more money. And it frustrates them. And then you have the dichotomy coming together, which is the coaches that offered players money to come and play, and then the player transfers the next year because they found more money. So, it's actually a little bit, I would say it's actually a little bit humorous that without a whole lot of regulation on this, this is becoming a little crazy. So is the collective a loophole? That is the question I'm asking you. What schools or what loopholes do you see with NIL collectives that are going to cause continual problems going into this next cycle? The other thing I want you to consider too is there are schools out there that are doing it the right way. One of the whole reasons why I'm doing this whole NIL thing is to show at the end of this how Colorado is going about this the right way. At the beginning of when Coach got here, he said, I don't coach for the NIL, I coach for the NFL. And when they come here, they're going to understand that they're going to be prepped to go to the NFL where they're going to be making way more money. And while they're here, they're going to create opportunities for themselves based off of how good they play, how good they are in the community, things like that. They will make their own opportunities based on that. But they're not going to promise money right up front before they've even come and played it down for the team. They're going to let the collectives work that out after the player is on campus and after the player has started to produce on the team. And we're going to go over Colorado collectives next in the next video. And you're going to see we have a multitude of different collectives that all do different things. And it's fantastic. I think some of the new collectives that are out there may be a big hit. So this is exciting. So put your comments down there. Let me know what you think about these NIL collectives. This NIL thing is super intriguing, and it affects our university more than you think it does. Not only with the players that are coming here, but the players that we lose because of it. That is a wrap from Alpine Garage Sports. We will see you in the next video, and if you haven't heard, we coming.